It's one of the recommendations from the Executive Order 203 that back then Governor Andrew Cuomo had instituted. So what it does is it's looking at an alternative response to armed officers responding to certain situations. So people have identified that there are certain situations where they don't need an armed officer to respond. So we have some civilian, non-law enforcement individuals that we were looking to put into these positions to answer calls through the Tompkins County Sheriff's Department.
We have two sheriff clerks. They both started beginning of June. They work side by side Monday through Friday right now. It's going great. The program, I believe, is going to be hugely successful.
I mean, yes, it's a job, but it's more than that. They have the compassion and they care, and they're members of our community. And they want to see our community be successful and to eliminate some of the stigmatisms that go along with the law enforcement and community members. So they have, to me, they express a passion for this kind of work.
The calls that we initially assigned to them or set aside for sheriff clerks to handle initially were property damage accidents, specifically car deer accidents, which we get a lot in our rural areas. Equipment malfunction checks. If somebody gets a traffic ticket for having a tail light out, they often respond here to have us fill out a form so they can get the ticket reduced or dismissed. Fraud complaints where there's no suspect, larcenies where there's no suspects, and the chance of solving that is pretty high or low. And noise complaints. The sheriff's office gets a lot of noise complaints where a lot of times the person calling in is complaining about a neighbor. Instead of tying up a deputy and removing them from road patrol to handle that, our hope was that sheriff clerks could figure out who the person is, locate them in our records management system, and simply place a phone call and say, hey, knock it off, turn the music down, or whatever it is.
One of the action steps for this plan was to look at other ways that law enforcement could respond to citizens' concerns and complaints. So what it does is it eliminates the personal, in-person contact of an officer. Sometimes that can escalate a situation when someone sees an armed officer. So with the sheriff clerks taking these calls, they're not out on the road, they don't leave the sheriff station, so there is really no human contact. So that it makes it a little bit easier for the caller to have their situation handled.
We had some issues with counsel for New York State. They didn't feel a civilian could handle a traffic investigation. They kind of shot that down. Equipment checks on vehicles, they shot that down. So we're starting to explore ways we can move other things around and possibly give to the sheriff clerks. Right now we're in the process of turning our sex offender management program over to them. That requires sex offenders, people that are on the registry, have to report to us ever so often. They have to update their photographs, their mailing addresses, and just check in. There's no reason we couldn't have a civilian handle that. There's times when we have to do a home check. We'll still leave that to our deputies since they're leaving the building to do so. But much of the program can be handled by the sheriff clerks. Myself and the legislature and county administration are all on the same page with this. We know this is a new program. We have no experience with it. We really went into it not knowing how it was going to turn out, although it seems to be working quite well now. So it's an experiment, so to speak. It's a 3-year trial period. It's funded for 3 years, and we'll take it from there. We'll see after 3 years, and of course we'll be studying it throughout that 3 years, trying to identify how many calls they take, what difference they've made, and how we measure that success of the program is crucial.
It just provides an alternative for a law enforcement response. People are getting their complaints answered without having the physical contact. And I think that was one of the things that, the whole ReImagining public safety was looking at, is what other ways can we help citizens and community members build better relationships with law enforcement without having them have to deal with an armed officer. Sheriff Osborne and Under Sheriff Jen Olin were both very excited and eager and willing and really happy to get this plan up and moving, get it launched. It's going to alleviate some of the workload for our road patrol officers. And so they are really excited about that. That way they are able to continue to build relationships with the community and answer more criminal calls.
It relieves stress from the deputies because they're extremely busy all the time. It's just the nature of the profession. So this is kind of a win-win in my mind. Nobody in Tompkins County ever suggested, at least with my office, that we reduce the number of deputies we have. That has not happened. The sheriff clerks simply supplement that. And even if you were against the reimagination process, it's hard to argue against the merits of this program because it's relieving the deputies. So the deputies now can be more engaged with the community. They have more time to investigate more important things, more serious crimes. So really, it's just a win-win situation. At the end of the day, we just want to be able to respond to what the community is asking of us. How we do that can be, left to our imagination.